The metal walls of Proxima 9 mining outpost groaned under the stress of the planet's harsh winds. Deep inside the station, behind 3 layers of reinforced barriers, Nyx paced her enclosure. Her 6 powerful legs moved with silent grace, each step calculated and perfect. Unlike other Crescent predators with their dark purple fur, Nyx's coat was pure white. The blue marks along her spine glowed softly in the dim light. Nyx was the pride of the Valkyrie Consortium security force. The alien corporation had paid a fortune to have her bred and trained. No one dared enter her sector without armed guards. Even then, they kept their distance, fear leaking from their pores. Nyx could smell their terror. It amused her. Today was different. Nyx felt strange. Her body told her it was time. She had been hiding her condition from the Valkyrie for weeks, using her intelligence to appear normal during inspections. Now, in the quiet of her enclosure, she allowed herself to lie down. 6 hours later, 3 tiny cubs nestled against her. They were small and weak, with the same white fur as their mother. Nyx cleaned them carefully, her rough tongue gentle against their delicate skin. The smallest cub worried her. Its breathing came in short, uneven gasps, and its heartbeat fluttered too quickly. Security breach in Sector 7. The alarm blared through the station, making Nyx's ears flatten against her head. She knew what had happened. During the weekly systems check, someone had noticed she wasn't at her usual post. They had activated the cameras they normally kept off to avoid agitating her. The door to her enclosure slid open. 3 Valkyrie enforcers stood there, their gray scales shimmering under the emergency lights. They held stun buttons and restraint nets. Director Mactol was right, said the tallest one. His thin lips pulled back in disgust. It's birthed offspring. The asset is compromised. Should we terminate them now? Asked another, raising his weapon. The leader held up his 4-fingered hand. No, Director wants to see them first. He tapped a code into his wrist device. Full containment protocol. No one enters until the Director arrives. Nyx watched them leave, her yellow eyes following their movements. She had been trained to kill on command, to protect Valkyrie property, and to fear the pain devices they controlled. But now, with her cubs beside her, different instincts took over. 2 hours later, Director Mactol stood outside the enclosure. His silver skin reflected the red warning lights as he stared at Nyx and her cubs through the transparent barrier. "This is unacceptable," he said to his assistants. "We paid for the perfect security predator, not a mother. Maternal instincts will make her unreliable. She'll protect those cubs instead of our assets." "Sir, she's still valuable," said one assistant. "The cubs could be trained from birth." "Look at the small one," interrupted Mactol, pointing one long finger at the weakest cub. "It's defective. And the others will have the same flaw in their genetic coding that allowed this one to develop its maternal drive." He turned away. "Terminate the asset and its offspring." "But sir, the cost." "I said terminate." Mactol's voice echoed down the corridor. "Or better yet, transfer them to Sector 12. We're shutting down life support there tomorrow anyway. Let nature take its course." The young assistant, tall, looked troubled but nodded. "Yes, Director." Later that night, Nyx sensed something was wrong. The air smelled different. The light panels dimmed one by one. She heard the distant sound of maintenance doors being sealed. 2 workers entered her enclosure, nervous and quick. They expected her to attack, but Nyx understood more than they knew. She watched as they disconnected the monitoring systems and food dispensers. One of them glanced at her with something like regret before they hurried out. "Did you set the transport pod?" asked one. "Yes," replied the other. "It will take them to Sector 12. The life support there shuts down in 20 hours. No one will check that area before demolition next week." Soon, Nyx felt the familiar hum of a transport pod activating around her. She gathered her cubs close as the pod lifted and moved through the station's service tunnels. When it stopped and opened, they were in a cold, dark area that smelled of disuse and abandonment. Nyx surveyed her new territory. The air was already growing thin. Small ice crystals formed at the edges of the vents where the heating system had failed. Her cubs wouldn't survive long in these conditions. The smallest one already struggled to breathe. For the first time in her life, Nyx faced an enemy she couldn't defeat with claws or fangs. But as she settled her cubs into the warmest corner she could find, something deep inside her refused to accept their fate. She would find a way to save them, even if it meant breaking every rule the Vaulderie had trained into her. The transport ship, Wandering Star, docked at Proxima 9 with a loud clank of metal against metal. Among the few passengers stepping onto the station was Juwan Park, a human mechanic with skilled hands and curious eyes. He carried a large toolkit over his shoulder and wore the standard blue jumpsuit of the Interstellar Repair Guild. Juwan looked around the busy docking bay. Tall, gray-skinned Vaulderie moved quickly, their 4 arms carrying tablets and equipment. Short, furry Mintus scurried between them, cleaning and organizing. In one corner, a group of massive Drell sat motionless, their stone-like skin blending with the wall. Humans were rare here. "You must be the new mechanic," said a voice behind him. Juwan turned to see a young Vaulderie with unusually bright eyes. The name tag on his uniform read, Tail. "Yes, sir. Juwan Park, reporting for duty." "Follow me," Tal said. "The director wants all new workers briefed immediately." As they walked through the station's main corridor, Juwan noticed the luxury of the public areas. Shining metals and soft lights made the place feel important, but his trained eye also spotted the signs of poor maintenance, small leaks, flickering lights, and uneven airflow. "This station is in worse shape than your bosses admit," Juwan said. Tal's 4 hands twitched nervously. "Be careful what you say, human. The director does not like criticism." They entered a small meeting room where 3 other mechanics waited, 2 Mintu and another human, an older woman with gray hair. A screen on the wall flickered to life, showing Director Maktal's silver face. His voice came through, cold and clear. "Welcome to Proxima 9, repair workers. You have been hired because your species are willing to work in conditions others find uncomfortable." The director's thin lips curved slightly. "You will be assigned to sectors requiring urgent repairs before demolition. Follow instructions exactly. Do not explore. Do not ask questions." The screen went dark. "Always so friendly," the older human woman muttered. "You must be Jin," Juwan said, offering his hand. She shook it firmly. 20 years working for these silver-faced snobs. They still treat us like we're stupid animals. "Humans are good with tools," Tal said, not unkindly. "Your small fingers can reach places ours cannot. And you don't complain when working in dangerous areas." "Because we need the money," Jin replied. Tal handed out assignment tablets. "Jin, you will work with the Mintu in Sector 5. Juwan, you are assigned to Sector 11, bordering the abandoned Sector 12. Jin looked up sharply. "Sector 12. That's where they used to keep." She stopped when Tal raised all 4 hands. "Sector 12 is scheduled for demolition and is off limits," Tal said firmly. "Focus only on your assigned tasks." After the briefing, Jin pulled Juwan aside. "Be careful in Sector 11. It's close to where they kept their prize pet." "Pet?" Juwan asked. "More like a living weapon, a white Crescent hunter, most deadly predator in this part of the galaxy. They called her Nyx. I've heard stories about Crescents, 6 legs, razor claws, smarter than they look." Jin nodded. "This one was special. Pure white with blue markings. I saw her once, 3 years ago. She looked right at me like she was reading my mind." Jin shivered. "Haven't seen her lately. Maybe they finally put her down." Later that day, Juwan found himself alone in Sector 11. The air was colder here and the lights dimmer. His tablet showed a long list of equipment to salvage before the neighboring sector was demolished. "Check oxygen recyclers in rooms 1120 through 1145, he read aloud. "Remove and tag all functional parts." Juwan worked steadily, dismantling air filters and power couplings. In room 1132, he found a maintenance hatch that wasn't on his map. Curious, he opened it and saw a narrow tunnel leading toward Sector 12. Probably just a service passage, he told himself. But as he started to close it, he felt a strange draft coming from inside. He took out his air quality sensor and held it near the opening. The reading surprised him. The air in the tunnel was fresher than it should be if Sector 12 was shut down. Someone had rigged a bypass to keep minimal life support running in the abandoned sector. Juwon knew he should report this. It was against protocol to modify station systems without authorization. But something about Jin's story about the White Crescent made him pause. He checked his tablet. He had 3 more hours before he needed to report back to Tail. Plenty of time to take a quick look. Juwon squeezed through the hatch and into the tunnel. His headlamp cast long shadows as he crawled forward. After about 50 meters, he reached another hatch marked 12A7. Sector 12, Area 7, he whispered. He opened it carefully and stepped into the cold, dark space beyond. His breath formed clouds in the chilly air. The life support system here was barely functioning. Something wasn't right. Juwon examined the nearest air recycler. It hadn't failed naturally. Someone had deliberately damaged it, but in a way that left it partially working. Why go to the trouble of sabotaging it, but leave it running? He wondered aloud. A soft sound from deeper in the sector made him freeze. It was like a quiet rumble, almost too low to hear. Then came another sound, a weak, high-pitched mewing. Despite all his training and common sense telling him to turn back, Juwon switched his headlamp to low power and moved toward the sounds. Whatever was making that noise, it didn't sound like a deadly predator. It sounded like something small and helpless, something that needed help. Juwon moved deeper into the abandoned Sector 12. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. The weak emergency lights cast long shadows. He followed the strange noises, his heart beating fast. "Hello," he called softly. "Is someone there?" No answer came, but the soft mewing sound continued. Juwon checked his oxygen reader. The air was thin here, barely enough to breathe. Whatever was making those sounds must be struggling. He turned a corner and stopped suddenly. Ahead was a large room with its door half open. The mewing sounds came from inside. Juwon approached slowly, his hand touching the stun stick at his belt. Jin's warning about the deadly White Crescent hunter echoed in his mind. Taking a deep breath, he peered through the gap in the door. What he saw made him freeze. In the far corner lay the most beautiful and terrifying creature he had ever seen. A massive 6-legged beast with pure white fur and glowing blue markings along its spine. Its body was longer than Juwon was tall. Sharp teeth showed slightly under its closed mouth. "Nix," he whispered. The creature's yellow eyes snapped open. They locked onto Juwon instantly. He knew he should run, but his feet wouldn't move. Then he noticed what lay beside the great beast. 3 small white bundles of fur, tiny copies of their mother. Cubs. The smallest one was making the weak mewing sounds, its tiny chest rising and falling too quickly. Nix didn't attack. She watched Juwon carefully, her eyes never leaving his face. She seemed too weak to stand, her sides moving too quickly as she breathed the thin air. Juwon slowly reached for his tablet and checked the room's systems. The readout confirmed his fears. Someone had set the life support to fail gradually. In less than 6 hours, there would be no oxygen left. "They left you here to die," he said quietly. As if understanding his words, Nix made a low rumbling sound. She nudged the smallest cub gently with her nose. The repair technician in Juwon took over. He looked around and spotted an auxiliary oxygen recycler in the corner. It was damaged but not beyond repair. Without thinking about the danger, he moved slowly toward it. Nix tensed, her powerful muscles bunching, ready to spring. "Easy," Juwon said softly. "I'm not going to hurt them. I'm trying to help." He continued moving, each step slow and careful. Nix watched but didn't attack. When he reached the recycler, he put down his tools and began to work. "They did a good job breaking this," he muttered, "but not good enough." For 20 minutes, Jiwan worked in silence. He could feel Nex's eyes on him the whole time. Once, when he dropped a tool with a loud clang, she growled deep in her throat, but she didn't move from her cubs. Finally, the recycler hummed to life. Fresh oxygen began flowing into the room. Jiwan checked his reader and nodded with satisfaction. "That should hold for a few days," he said. "Not a permanent fix, but enough time to figure something out." He turned slowly to face Nix. The great beast was still watching him, but something had changed in her eyes. She seemed less tense now. The smallest cub made another mewing sound, but stronger this time. The fresh oxygen was already helping. Jiwan backed slowly toward the door. "I'll come back," he promised, "with food and more supplies." Just before he reached the exit, something strange happened. Nix lifted her massive head and blinked slowly at him. Then she made a sound unlike her earlier growls, almost like a purr. Jiwan felt a chill run down his spine. Jin was right. This creature was smarter than anyone knew. Back in Sector 11, Jiwan tried to focus on his assigned work, but his mind kept returning to Nix and her cubs. By the time his shift ended, he had made a decision. He detoured to the station's supply depot and used his repair authorization to collect emergency rations and medical supplies. The Mintu clerk barely looked at his request form. "For Sector 11 repairs?" the small furry alien asked. "Yes," Jiwan lied. "Environmental system testing." On his way back to his quarters, he ran into Jin. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. Jiwan hesitated. Should he tell her? Could he trust her? Before he could decide, his tablet beeped with a message from Tile. "Report to Director Maktal's office tomorrow at 700, it read. "Routine check-in for new personnel." Jin saw the message and frowned. The director never meets with repair techs. Something's wrong. "Maybe he just wants to make sure I'm following protocols," Jiwan said, trying to sound casual. "Be careful," Jin warned. "And whatever you found in Sector 11 that's got you looking so worried, forget about it. Nothing on this station is worth risking your life for." Jiwan nodded, but he knew he wouldn't follow her advice. He couldn't forget those yellow eyes watching him, or the small white cubs fighting to breathe. Jiwan stood outside Director Maktal's office, trying to calm his racing heart. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "Enter, human," called a cool voice from inside. The office was large and cold, with bare metal walls and a single desk. Director Maktal sat behind it, his silver skin shining under the bright lights. Tal stood beside him, looking nervous. "You wanted to see me, Director." Jiwan kept his voice steady. "Yes." Maktal studied him with dark eyes. "Your work record shows you have fixed systems that others call beyond repair. We need such skills." Jiwan relaxed slightly. Maybe this wasn't about Nix after all. "We are moving you to Sector 10, the director continued. "It needs extensive repairs before important visitors arrive next week." "What about Sector 11? Jiwan asked. "It is no longer your concern." Maktal waved one four-fingered hand. "Tal will show you your new assignment." As they left the office, Tal spoke quietly. "You are lucky. The director rarely notices repair workers." "Why did he notice me?" Tal hesitated. "You asked too many questions about Sector 12. The security system logged your voice." Jiwan's stomach tightened. "The security system is still active there. I thought it was shut down." "Most systems are off, but some still report to main control." Tal looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Be careful, Jiwan. Forget about Sector 12. But Jiwan couldn't forget. That night, after his shift in Sector 10, he returned to the hidden passage to Sector 12. He carried a bag with food, water, and medical supplies. When he entered Nex's room, She was waiting. She didn't growl this time. Her cubs looked stronger, but the smallest one still struggled to breathe. Juan set down his bag and slowly took out a scanner he had borrowed from the medical bay. He held it up so Nix could see it. "I need to check the little one," he said softly. "Something's wrong with it." To his surprise, Nix made a chirping sound. The two larger cubs backed away, but the small one stayed put. Juan took this as permission and moved closer. He ran the scanner over the tiny cub. The screen showed a small heart beating too fast. One valve was not closing properly. "Heart defect," Juan muttered. "That's why they left you here to die. They think you're all defective." He reached into his bag and took out a small device used to regulate oxygen flow for species with breathing problems. With careful hands, he adjusted it to the cub's size. "This might help," he said to Nix. "It will make breathing easier until I can find a better solution." Nix watched him place the device near her cub. The small blue light on it pulsed gently, and almost immediately, the cub's breathing eased. Juan sat back and studied the great beast. "You're not what they say you are you? You're not just a killing machine." While the cubs ate the food he had brought, Juan checked the station's records on his tablet. He found files on Nix that required special access, but his repair codes let him see parts of them. "Specimen NX7, he read aloud. "Crescent Hunter, Albino variant. Enhanced strength and intelligence. Trained for security and elimination of threats." He scrolled down to recent entries. "Breeding project failure. Subject developed maternal instincts, making it unsuitable for security work. Termination ordered due to genetic defect in offspring." Juan looked up at Nix. "They think caring for your babies is a defect." The next morning, Juan was deep in repairs in Sector 10 when Jin found him. "Someone's been asking about you," she said. "A woman, human scientist type." "What did she want?" "Wouldn't say, but she seemed very interested in what sectors you've been working in." Jin lowered her voice. "Watch yourself, Juan. This station has many secrets." Later that day, as Juan was finishing his shift, a tall woman with short black hair approached him. "Juan Park?" she asked. "I'm Jun Song, xenobiologist. I need to speak with you privately." Her serious face made Juan nervous. "About what?" "About the white crescent and her cubs you've been helping." Juan's heart sank. "I don't know what you're talking about." Jun smiled slightly. "Yes, you do, and I want to help." She held up her tablet showing supply records. "No one needs this much oxygen regulator for routine repairs. Plus, I saw you take medical equipment designed for infant care. Are you going to report me?" She shook her head. "No. I've been studying crescents for years." The Valkyrie refused to share information about Nix. "If she's had cubs, it's an important scientific discovery." "How can I trust you?" "You can't," Jun said simply. "But Nix needs more help than you can give alone, especially for the cub with the heart defect." Juan was silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Meet me after the night shift ends. Bring whatever medical equipment you can get without raising suspicion." That night, Juan led Jun through the hidden passage to Sector 12. Before they entered Nix's room, he stopped. "Let me go first. She knows me." Nix was awake when they entered. She tensed at the sight of Jun, her claws extending. "It's okay," Juan said softly. "She's here to help." To Jun's amazement, Nix seemed to understand. The great hunter watched them carefully but allowed them to approach the cubs. "Incredible," Jun whispered as she examined the smallest cub. "The Valkyrie reports claim crescents have minimal intelligence, but she understands what we're doing." "They're wrong about her," Juan said. "She's not just a weapon. She thinks, she feels." As if to prove his point, Nix gently pushed the sick cub closer to Jun, clearly asking for help. "I'll do everything I can," Jun promised, looking into those intelligent yellow eyes. Neither human noticed the small camera in the corner of the room. its lens focusing on their faces. Over the next few days, Jiwan and Jiun created a routine. They took turns visiting Nyx and her cubs. They always brought food, medicine, and supplies to improve the living space in Sector 12. "We need to name the cubs," Jiwan said one evening as they watched the little ones play. The small one with the heart problem was getting stronger thanks to Jiun's medical device. "You're right," Jiun agreed. "We can't keep calling them the small one and the bigger ones." Nyx sat nearby, her yellow eyes following their conversation as if she understood every word. "This one," Jiwan said, pointing to the largest cub with bold blue markings, "feels like a Haru to me." "Strong name," Jiun nodded. "The female with the spot on her ear can be Somi." They both looked at the smallest cub, who was now breathing much better. "Bin," Jiwan decided. "It means bright in my grandmother's dialect, because I think this little fighter has a bright future ahead." As if understanding he was being named, little Bin stumbled over to Jiwan and bumped against his hand with a small chirp. "He likes it," Jiwan laughed. Jiwan gently stroked Bin's head. 6 months ago, he would never have imagined touching a Crescent hunter, let alone petting one. These creatures were feared across the galaxy. Yet here was tiny Bin, purring against his hand. Even more surprising was Nyx's behavior. The great hunter now allowed both humans to move freely around her cubs. Sometimes, she even left the cubs in their care while she explored the nearby rooms in Sector 12. "She trusts us," Jiun said with wonder as she recorded Nyx's behavior on her tablet. "This goes against everything in the scientific records about Crescents." "Maybe the records are wrong," Jiwan suggested. "Or maybe Nyx is different." That day, Jiun had brought a special scanner used for brain activity. With Nyx's permission, the great hunter now seemed to understand their requests. She took readings of the adult Crescent's brain. "This is amazing," Jiun whispered as she studied the results. "Her brain activity is far more complex than the Valkyrie reports suggest. It's almost like..." "Like what?" "Like she's been hiding her intelligence from them." They both looked at Nyx, who was watching them with those knowing yellow eyes. "You've been pretending, haven't you?" Jiwan asked her directly. "Acting like the simple hunter they wanted you to be." Nyx blinked slowly and made a rumbling sound in her throat. Later that evening, as Jiwan was fixing the water recycler in the room, little Bin suddenly collapsed. His breathing became fast and shallow. "Something's wrong with the heart device," Jiwan called to June, who rushed over. She checked the small medical unit. "The power cell is failing. We need a replacement." "I have spare cells in my repair kit in Sector 10, Jiwan said. "I'll get them." As he stood to leave, Nyx blocked his path. For a moment, Jiwan felt a flash of fear. Had they been wrong about her? But then Nyx did something unexpected. She walked to a small vent in the corner and scratched at it with one claw. What is she doing? June wondered. Jiwan approached the vent. It was loose. When he removed the cover, he found a small storage space behind it. Inside was a collection of items, power cells, tools, and even some food rations. "She's been collecting things," Jiwan said in amazement, "storing them for when she needed them." June shook her head in disbelief. The level of planning this would take. Jiwan, she's not just intelligent. She's problem-solving at a near-sentient level. They used one of the power cells to fix Bin's heart device. As the small cub's breathing returned to normal, Nyx made a soft chirping sound and gently licked Jiwan's hand. "She's saying thank you," June whispered. That night, as they left Sector 12, neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, June broke the silence. "We can't keep this secret forever. Sooner or later, someone will discover what we're doing." "I know," Jiwan agreed. "But what choice do we have? If the Volturi find out, they'll kill Nyx and the cubs. They can't admit they were wrong about her." "There's something else," June said hesitantly. "I've heard rumors that important visitors are coming to the station next week. representatives from the Galactic Council. The ones who make laws for all species. Why would they come here? I don't know, but it might be our only chance, if we could somehow prove to them that Nyx is more than just an animal. Juan nodded slowly. It's risky, but you're right. We need help from someone with power. As they parted ways, neither noticed the shadow that followed Juan back to her quarters. Nor did they see the figure who quietly accessed the security recordings from Sector 12. In his private quarters, Security Officer Hukjin replayed the footage of Guan and Jiun with the white Crescent and her cubs. His eyes gleamed with greed as he sent an encrypted message to a contact in the black market. Rare specimen located, he wrote. Albino Crescent cubs. Bidding starts at 50,000 credits each. The reply came quickly. Interested. Need proof of authenticity. Hukjin smiled as he attached a video clip. Will obtain specimens within 2 days. Prepare payment. Meanwhile, in Sector 12, Nyx stood guard over her sleeping cubs. Something in her powerful animal instincts told her that danger was coming. She moved to the small pile of items she had collected and pushed aside a metal panel in the floor. Underneath was a small opening. An escape route she had been secretly widening each night while the humans were gone. She wasn't ready yet, but soon they would need it. The next morning, Jiwan was fixing a power coupling in Sector 10 when Tal approached him. The director wants to see you, the young Valkyrie said, his voice low. Immediately. Jiwan's heart raced, but he kept his face calm. Did he say why? No, but he seems angry. Tal hesitated, then added, Be careful, Jiwan. I think someone has reported something about you. As they walked to the director's office, Jiwan tried to think of an escape plan. Had someone discovered his visits to Nyx? He needed to warn June. The director's office was colder than before. Maktal sat behind his desk, his silver face hard and expressionless. Human, he said without greeting. Your work in Sector 10 is unsatisfactory. Jiwan blinked in surprise. This was not what he expected. The power systems are still failing. Maktal continued. You will fix them today or be replaced. Understood? Yes, Director, Jiwan said, relief washing over him. This was just about work performance, not about Nyx. As he left the office, he saw Jin waiting outside. What did he want? She asked. Just complaining about my work, Jiwan said. Jin frowned. That's strange. I checked your repairs yesterday. Everything was working perfectly. A cold feeling settled in Jiwan's stomach. Someone's trying to keep me busy in Sector 10. Or distract you from something else, Jin suggested. Be careful. When Jiwan returned to Sector 10, he found the power systems deliberately damaged. Someone had sabotaged his work. It would take hours to repair. He tried to contact Jiwan but couldn't reach her. Worried, he worked as quickly as possible, finishing the repairs in half the expected time. As evening approached, Jiwan hurried to Sector 12 through the hidden passage. He knew something was wrong the moment he entered. The air smelled different. There was a sharp scent of strange chemicals. Nyx, he called softly. Are you here? A low growl came from the shadows. Nyx emerged, limping slightly. One of her legs was bleeding. What happened? Jiwan rushed to her side. Before he could check her wound, a noise from the next room caught his attention. It was a small, frightened mew. Jiwan ran to the sound and found Little Bin hiding under a broken panel. The other cubs were nowhere to be seen. Where are Haru and Somi? He asked, though he knew Nyx couldn't answer with words. Nyx made a rumbling sound and moved to the door, clearly wanting Jiwan to follow. They moved through several rooms until they reached a storage area. The door had been forced open. Inside, equipment was scattered everywhere, as if a fight had happened. On the floor was a broken stun baton, the kind used by station security. Nearby lay a datapad. Jiwan picked it up and turned it on. What he saw made his blood run cold. It was a message about selling rare Crescent cubs to a collector. There was a picture of Haru and Somi in a cage. Someone took them, Juwon whispered. But you fought back. That's how you got hurt. Nyx snarled, her yellow eyes blazing with anger and fear for her missing cubs. Just then, Juwon's communicator beeped. It was June. Juwon, where are you? Her voice was breathless and frightened. In Sector 12 with Nyx. Someone took 2 of the cubs. I know who did it, June said. It's Security Officer Huk-jin. He caught me coming out of the medical supply room. He knows everything. Where are you now? Hiding in my quarters. Huk-jin has the cubs in Cargo Bay 3. He's meeting a buyer tonight. Juwon looked at Nyx, who seemed to understand the conversation. We need to get those cubs back. It's not just the cubs, June said. I overheard Huk-jin talking to someone named Zolar. They're planning to capture Nyx too. They want the complete set. When? Tonight. They're coming back with more men and stronger weapons. Yuan's mind raced. We need to move Nyx and Bin somewhere safe. Where? The station is full of security cameras. Nyx made a sound and moved to the floor panel she had been working on. With one powerful claw, she pulled it up, revealing a tunnel underneath. She's been digging an escape route, Juwon said in amazement. June gasped. That's brilliant. The maintenance tunnels between sectors. They're not monitored like the main passageways. Can you get to Sector 12 without being seen? I think so, June replied. But what about Haru and Somi? Juwon looked at Nyx, whose eyes burned with determination. We're going to get them back. All of us. He checked his tool belt. He had his repair tools, a portable welder, and an electromagnetic pulse device used for resetting faulty systems. Not much to fight with, but it would have to do. Meet us here in 1 hour, he told June. Bring any medical supplies you can for Nyx's leg. After ending the call, Juwon knelt beside the great white hunter. I know you understand me, he said. We're going to save your cubs, together. Nyx pressed her massive head against Juwon's shoulder in a gesture of trust. Then she turned to little Bin, who was trembling nearby, and gently pushed him toward the human. The message was clear. Protect my child while I fight for the others. Juwon picked up Bin carefully. I promise, he said. In Cargo Bay 3, Huk-jin smiled as he watched the 2 white cubs pace in their reinforced cage. His buyer, Zolar, would arrive soon. And then they would capture the mother and the last cub. The payment would make him rich enough to leave this boring station forever. He never noticed the small camera lens in the corner of the room, or the fact that someone had accessed the security system to watch his every move. June arrived at Sector 12 with a small medical kit and bad news. Station security is on high alert, she told Juwon, as she treated Nyx's wounded leg. Someone reported strange activity in the abandoned sectors. They're sending search teams. Juwon looked down at little Bin, who was curled up in a makeshift carrier he had created from an old parts box. We need to move fast. How long until they reach this area? Less than an hour, June said. And there's more. The Galactic Council representatives arrived early. They're meeting with Director Mac-Tall right now. Nyx growled softly as June finished bandaging her leg. The great hunter stood, testing her weight on the injured limb. She seemed satisfied and moved to the tunnel entrance, looking back at the humans expectantly. She wants us to follow her, Juwon said. He picked up Bin's carrier and a small pack of supplies. The tunnel was narrow but tall enough for them to walk hunched over. Nyx led the way, her white fur glowing faintly in the darkness. The tunnel branched several times, but Nyx never hesitated about which way to go. She must have explored all these passages, June whispered in amazement. She knew this might happen. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached a metal grate. Beyond it was a dimly lit room filled with cleaning equipment. We're in the maintenance closet near Cargo Bay 2, Juwon realized. Just 1 bay away from where Huk-jin is keeping the cubs. Carefully, they removed the grate and entered the closet. Jiwan peered out into the corridor. It was empty. The cargo bays should be quiet at this hour, June said. Most workers are at evening meal. Suddenly, the station's alarm system blared to life. A computerized voice echoed through the corridors. Alert. Dangerous predator loose in station. All personnel return to quarters for lockdown. They know Nix is missing, Juan said. We have less time than we thought. June checked her tablet. Security channels show they're focusing searches on the main corridors. They don't know about the maintenance tunnels yet. Nix made a low, urgent sound. She could smell her cubs nearby. We need a distraction, Juan said. He pulled out his repair tools and approached a control panel on the wall. I can trigger a false alarm in Cargo Bay 4. It might draw some guards away from Bay 3. While Yuan worked on the panel, June kept watch. The corridors were emptying as station personnel hurried to their quarters for the lockdown. Done, Juan said as the panel blinked with new commands. Seconds later, alarms sounded from the direction of Cargo Bay 4. They waited and soon saw 2 security guards run past their hiding place toward the false alarm. Now's our chance, June whispered. The 3 of them, 2 humans and a 6-legged predator, moved quickly and quietly toward Cargo Bay 3. At the entrance, Juan used his repair code to override the door lock. The door slid open to reveal a large room stacked with shipping containers. In the center stood a reinforced cage containing 2 white cubs. Huck Jin stood beside the cage, talking to a tall, thin alien with pale green skin. Zalar, the exotic animal trader. The mother will fetch 10 times what you're paying for the cubs, Huck Jin was saying. My team will capture her within the hour. If you can deliver the adult, I'll double my offer, Zalar replied in a raspy voice. Albino cretins are extremely rare. My collector would pay anything. Neither of them noticed the door opening or the white shape that slipped into the shadows of the cargo bay. Juan whispered to June, "Take Bin and stay hidden. I'll try to get to the control panel and turn off the lights. When I do, grab the cubs if you can." June nodded and took the carrier with little Bin. Juan moved silently along the wall toward the bay's control station. He was halfway there when Zeller suddenly turned. "What was that?" the trader asked, peering into the shadows. Huck Jin reached for his weapon. "Probably nothing. The station makes noises during lockdown." But Zeller wasn't convinced. "I thought I saw movement. You said we'd be alone here." "We are. No one knows about this deal." Just then, Bin made a small mewing sound from inside his carrier. The noise echoed in the large room. Huck Jin turned sharply. What was that? It sounded like... He never finished his sentence. From the shadows, Nix launched herself at the security officer. Despite her injured leg, she moved with incredible speed and power. Huck Jin fired his weapon, but Nix was too fast. She knocked him to the floor, pinning him with her massive paws. Zalar pulled out a much larger weapon and aimed it at Nix. "Don't damage the merchandise," he snarled. Juan didn't hesitate. He threw his electromagnetic pulse device at Zalar's feet. It detonated with a flash, temporarily disabling all electronic devices nearby, including Zalar's weapon and the lock on the cub's cage. The lights went out, plunging the cargo bay into darkness. In the confusion, Juan ran to the cage and opened it. Haru and Somi bounded out, rushing to find their mother in the darkness. But Zalar had backup weapons that weren't affected by the pulse. A bright flash lit up the cargo bay as he fired at Nix. The shot missed, hitting a nearby oxygen tank instead. With a roar, the tank exploded, sending metal shards flying across the room. Warning alarms blared as the cargo bay's fire suppression system activated. Water sprayed from ceiling pipes and emergency lights cast red shadows everywhere. "Station damage detected in Cargo Bay 3, announced the computerized voice. Emergency teams responding. Life support systems compromised in sectors 8 through 14. Juan helped June gather all 3 cubs as Nix dealt with Huck Jin and Zalar. "We need to leave now," Jiwan shouted over the alarms. This whole section might lose air soon. June pointed to a service door at the back of the bay. That leads to the shuttle docks. It's our only chance. As they ran for the door, security forces burst into the cargo bay from the main entrance. Director Mactel stood among them, his silver face twisted with rage when he saw Nix. "Capture the beast and the humans," he ordered. "They've destroyed valuable property." Nix rejoined her humans and cubs at the service door. Together, they escaped into the corridor beyond, with security forces in close pursuit. Ahead lay the shuttle bay, and their only hope of escape from the station. Behind them came the sounds of boots and weapons being readied. The chase was on, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The corridor to the shuttle bay seemed endless. Jiwan carried Little Bin while June helped the other two cubs keep up. Nix ran beside them, her injured leg slowing her down, but her determination never wavering. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. The station's alarms continued to blare. Life support failing in sectors 9 through 13, the computer voice announced. All personnel evacuate immediately. The explosion damaged more systems than I thought, Jiwan said between breaths. The whole station could become uninhabitable. They turned a corner and saw the entrance to the shuttle bay ahead. 2 security guards stood at the door, weapons ready. Jiwan and Jiun stopped, unsure what to do next. But Nix didn't hesitate. She moved in front of them, not in an attack position, but standing tall and proud. Then, to everyone's surprise, she sat down, showing she wasn't going to fight. The guards looked confused. They had been told to expect a dangerous beast, not a creature that sat calmly before them. "What is it doing?" one guard asked. "I don't know," replied the other. "Call for backup." While the guards were distracted, Jiwan noticed something. "Look at the station administrator's office," he whispered to June. "The door is open." The office overlooked the shuttle bay. Inside, they could see a tall Valkyrie watching them. It was Do-Yun, the station administrator. "He's been helping us all along," June realized. "That's why security couldn't track us through the maintenance tunnels. He must have erased the camera footage." Suddenly, their communicators beeped with a message. "Use shuttle bay control room. Code 7729 Blue. D." Jiwan nodded to June. They had a new plan. "Hey," Jiwan called to the guards. "We need help. The cubs are injured." While the guards were focusing on Jiwan, June slipped away toward a small door labeled Control Room. She entered the code from Do-Yun's message, and the door opened. Inside the control room, June quickly found the shuttle bay systems. With a few commands, she opened all the shuttle bay doors at once. Alarms blared again as the safety protocols were overridden. The guards turned in confusion as doors opened all around them. In that moment, Nix moved, not to attack, but to herd her cubs and humans toward the nearest shuttle. Director Mactel and a group of security officers burst into the shuttle bay just as Jiwan, June, Nix, and the 3 cubs reached a small maintenance shuttle. "Stop them," Mactel shouted. "The Crescent is Valkyrie property." Jiwan used his repair code to open the shuttle door. Everyone inside. Quickly. As June helped the cubs into the shuttle, Nix stood guard, facing Mactel and his forces. The great hunter growled, her yellow eyes fixed on the director. "That creature is worth more than all of you combined," Mactel told his guards. "Take it alive if possible, but do not let it escape." The guards raised their weapons, but before they could fire, a new voice rang out. "Lower your weapons immediately." Everyone turned to see a group of elegantly dressed aliens entering the shuttle bay. They wore the distinctive blue and silver robes of the Galactic Council. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded the lead council member, a tall being with deep purple skin. "We were told there was a station emergency, not an armed conflict." Director Mactel straightened his posture. "Council Member Vor, we are dealing with escaped property and thieves. These humans have stolen a valuable security asset. Do-hyun stepped forward from his office. That is not entirely accurate, Director, if I may. The council member nodded. These humans discovered that a rare Crescent hunter and her cubs were abandoned in a sector where life support was shut down. Do-hyun explained. They saved the creatures from certain death. Death that was ordered by Director Maktal because the Crescent showed maternal instincts. Is this true? Council member Vor asked, looking at Maktal. The director's silver face showed no emotion. The specimen was defective. It was within our rights to dispose of it. Dispose of it. June stepped forward from the shuttle door. Nyx is not just property. She's intelligent. More intelligent than the Valkyrie reports admit. Ridiculous. Maktal snapped. Crescents are animals. Trained hunters, nothing more. Jiwon joined Jun. Then how do you explain this? He gestured to Nyx, who was still standing guard. At Jiwon's signal, Nyx did something no one expected. She bowed her head to the council members, then backed slowly toward her cubs, never taking her eyes off the director. By the stars, whispered council member Vor. That's a submission gesture. Crescents never submit to other species. Another council member stepped forward, a small being with glowing skin. I am the council's chief cynobiologist. What these humans describe suggests the Crescent has reached a level of intelligence that would classify it as a semi-sentient species. That's impossible, Maktal insisted. Actually, said the xenobiologist, there have been reports of unusual intelligence in albino Crescents for years. Reports that were suppressed by certain commercial interests. Council member Vor's eyes narrowed. Like the Valkyrie consortium. Director Maktal fell silent. Under Galactic Council law, Vor continued, any species showing signs of emerging sentience is automatically protected. No individual can own or control such beings. He turned to Jiwon and Jun. The council will need to study these creatures properly, in a safe, appropriate environment. What about the humans? Maktal demanded. They damaged station property. They should be arrested. Do-hyun cleared his throat. The station logs show that the explosion was caused by illegal weapons fire from an unregistered trader. The humans were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Council member Vor looked at all of them for a long moment. Then he made his decision. The Crescent and her cubs will be placed under council protection, he announced. And these humans will assist in their relocation, as they seem to have earned the creature's trust. Maktal opened his mouth to object, but the look on the council member's face made him reconsider. For the first time since they had met her, Nyx made a sound that was almost like a purr. She seemed to understand that everything had changed. The stand was over, and they had won. 3 months after the events at Proxima 9, Jiwon stood on a grassy hill overlooking a wide valley. The planet Sanctus was nothing like the cold metal station. Here, trees reached toward the sky, streams flowed clear and clean, and the air smelled fresh. The new enclosure is finished, he told June, who was monitoring little Bin's heart. The council engineers helped me build it exactly as we planned. June smiled. Bin's health had improved greatly since they arrived at the Galactic Council's wildlife sanctuary. The medical device was still helping his heart, but he grew stronger each day. Where's Nyx? She asked. Juon pointed to the forest edge, hunting with Haru and Somi, teaching them how to track. The Galactic Council had given Jiwon and Jun special positions at the sanctuary. Jiwon was now chief habitat engineer, using his repair skills to create perfect living spaces for the creatures under council protection. Jun was the lead researcher on Crescent intelligence, documenting Nyx's abilities for the scientific community. Council member Vor is visiting tomorrow, Jun said. He wants to see Nyx's progress. In the 3 months since their escape from Proxima 9, news had spread throughout the galaxy. The story of the human mechanic who saved the deadliest predator in the quadrant had become famous. More importantly, the Council's investigation had revealed that many species were more intelligent than previously reported. The Voluri Consortium had faced severe penalties. Director Maktal lost his position. Station Administrator Do-Yun was now leading reforms in how the Voluri treated all living creatures. As the sun began to set, Ju-On saw 3 white shapes emerging from the forest. Nyx led her cubs toward the humans with an easy grace. Her injured leg had healed completely, and her white fur shone in the fading light. They could live anywhere in this preserve, Ju-On said softly. It's over 2,000 square miles of perfect habitat, but they always come back to us. Nyx reached them first. She gently bumped her head against Ju-On's hand in greeting, then did the same to Ju-On. The 2 older cubs playfully tackled Bin, who had been waiting patiently for his siblings. Ju-On watched them play with a full heart. The council scientists still can't explain why Nyx is so different from other Cretans. Maybe she's not, Ju-On suggested. Maybe all Cretans have this potential, but no one ever gave them a chance to show it. As if understanding their conversation, Nyx looked up at them with her intelligent yellow eyes. Then she did something they had only seen a few times before. Using one claw, she traced shapes in the soft earth. Ju-On knelt down to look. The marks looked like simple writing. 3 basic symbols that Ju-On had been teaching Nyx to recognize. The symbols for Nyx, home, and family. She's learning so fast, Ju-On whispered in amazement. That night, as the humans sat outside their research cabin, they watched Nyx and her cubs sleeping peacefully under the stars. The great hunter who had once been trained to kill now rested safely with her family. A message arrived on Ju-On's tablet. It was from Jin, his old colleague from Proxima 9. Your story has changed things, she wrote. The Voluri are treating human workers better now, and they've stopped using living creatures for security. You and that white beast made a difference. Ju-On smiled as he looked at Nyx. When he had first encountered her in that cold, abandoned sector, he never imagined where their journey would lead. A human mechanic and an alien predator had shown the galaxy something important. Compassion could cross the boundaries between species. In the morning, Nyx would wake and lead her cubs to the stream for water. She would practice the new symbols Ju-On was teaching her. She would play with her cubs in the sunlight, and the humans who had saved her would continue learning from her, as she learned from them. It was a new beginning, not just for Nyx and her cubs, but for humans in the galaxy too. Once seen as merely useful tools, humans were now becoming known for something far more valuable: their capacity to care for all living things, even those that others feared.